Hi guys, this is Angel Arts. So this video has nothing to do with video games or tabletop gaming or any of that nature. As you probably can see from the title, it's it's about something very crazy go nuts and something very scary that happened just a few days ago, just the second week of 2021. Pretty much in a nutshell, somebody pulled a gun on my husband. So let me see if I could break down what happened. So my husband went to go pick up our son Brody from daycare, and he got into his car, turned the ignition on, and realized very quickly that the car wouldn't start. So he was like, oh, great, that means my car battery died or something else is going on with my vehicle. So he basically was running late, and so he went back into the house, took my keys, and basically borrowed my car to go pick up our son from daycare. Picks up Brody, drops him off at the house because at that point I was on baby duty pretty much from then until I put him to bed, essentially. So meanwhile, Colin goes and calls Geico. For those of you who don't know what Geico is, because I think it's more of an American thing, Geico is a car insurance company. And called up Geico, and long story short, they basically told him that they would need to send a tow truck over to tow his car to a shop or something along those lines. So the Geico guy arrives, and the way that our apartment complex is set up, the parking lot is around the corner. So we actually cannot see any of our vehicles, from our apartment. That is something that is completely separate that we have to walk around to. So Colin and the Geico guy are walking over to his car, and the Geico guy just happened to be, carrying this big old tire wrench in his hand. And once Colin sees his car, he notices that there's some random dude inside of his vehicle doing something shady, either trying to steal something from the car or maybe trying to steal the car itself. Inconclusive, but Colin, of course, was confused. He wasn't really sure what to think, and his immediate thought was maybe this guy is another Geico person. So he turns to the original Geico guy and was like, hey, do you know this person? And the Geico guy was like, I've never seen that guy in my life. And so this led to a lot more confusion. And so Colin proceeded to then, approach the car and kind of yelled out to the guy and saying, hey, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? Or something along those lines. The guy in the car jumps out and just proceeds to book it on out of there. Now, on hindsight, this probably was not the smartest thing to do, but Colin and the Geico guy essentially started chasing after this person. And at some point, the robber guy trips and falls, and that gave my husband and the Geico guy enough of an opportunity to catch up to him. But before they got too close, that was when the robber guy essentially pulled out a gun and pointed it right at them, very, according to Colin, very purposely pointed this gun at them and was basically like, stay away from me, or something along those lines. So of course, Colin freaks out, and he and the Geico guy dive behind cover. I'm assuming probably dove behind some of the other cars in the parking lot, and that fortunately gave the guy time to, escape, just get up and leave. And so I felt horrible for Colin at this point because he has had a history of having nightmares quite frequently on a, I would like to believe, more than average regular basis. In fact, he had just told me a week or two prior that he had that same reoccurring dream. Reoccurring dreams of somebody breaking into our apartment and holding him at gunpoint, or somebody stopping him at the school parking lot and holding him at gunpoint, or just somebody chasing him in some random place with a gun. So he was like almost stunned, wondering, am I dreaming? Is this a nightmare? Is this real? Is this actually happening? And so he eventually calls the cops. And the Geico guy, by the way, was crazy. And the Geico guy, by the way, was extremely adamant about catching this other dude because he still had his his tire wrench in his hand, and he was like, "No, man, if that guy didn't have a gun, if he didn't have a gun, I was gonna mess him up. I was gonna mess that mother effer up." And whoo, he according to Colins seemed to be even more ticked off at the whole situation than he was. So that happened. Meanwhile, I have no idea any of this is happening. I'm still at home cooking dinner, watching our son. He comes in, and I noticed immediately that he had he was laser focused, and he was holding my car keys, which I thought was kind of like interesting because I didn't even know that he even borrowed my car to begin with. And he noticed that I was sort of like staring at him weirdly, and he was like, I'll explain later. And, he was just kind of in and out, in to pick up whatever and then out. And I'm presuming went back out to go talk to the cops again. So I was like, not really sure what was going on. About an hour passes by, and then that was time for me to start to put our son to bed. And then my husband comes back with these two other guys, and they proceed to be changing the locks on our door. And at this point, I'm like, what's going on? And apparently the reason why they're changing the locks is because during the whole scuffle situation, Colin lost his keys, and he wasn't sure if the keys were still in his vehicle at the time. He wasn't sure if he might have dropped the keys at some point and the robber took them. So at this point, he wasn't sure if the guy has our house keys now. So naturally, he was going to inform the apartment complex people anyway to let them know that this happened, but then mention, hey, could we get our locks changed? So essentially, finally, he tells me the story of what went on. And of course, I was like, that was like 3 hours ago. Why didn't you say anything? And like, why did you run after that guy? And blah, 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 blah. So it was super scary. I just thank God that, he's okay. Colin's okay. But in addition to that, I was just thank God that our son wasn't with him, or that our son wasn't in the back seat of the car or anything. Because remember, this happened virtually immediately after he picked our son up from daycare. And the funny thing, if I can get any funny thing out of this whole situation, is the poor robber. Like, I'm guessing he was in the car attempting to steal the car, but the car wouldn't start. So maybe that's why Colin even caught him in the first place, because he couldn't get the car to start, is what I'm thinking. But it's just an interesting chain of events. We're fine now. I guess my biggest worry, obviously, is whether or not this guy is going to come back. Because I don't know if he's from the area, or if he's the kind of person who just goes from neighborhood to neighborhood doing whatever it is. I mean, it's very scary. It's a really scary situation. And, knock on wood, something like this isn't going to happen again. Hopefully this is one of those lightning only strikes once in the same place situation. So that is my hope, at least. But I was thinking to myself, man, 2021, like after 2020, I was very optimistic. I'm a very optimistic person, and I was very optimistic about, 2021. I knew it wasn't going to change overnight, but I figured 2021 has got to hopefully be somewhat better than 2020. And then the whole stuff at the Capitol during the first week of 2021 happened, and then week two, somebody pulls a gun on my husband. So who knows? Who knows? Anyway, I just thought I would share that with you guys, and because it was a very very frightening experience. And I hope that all of you watching are remaining safe and sound, at in your homes. I'm hoping that this is one of those cases where karma's gonna owe us a lot more for the rest of the year, since it started off kind of at the beginning. And hopefully, I'm hoping, knock on wood, I'm very optimistic, hopefully things will get better. And so, several people are having their vaccines taken. My husband actually is getting his vaccine this week done, I think. So hopefully the process is starting for things to get back to normal. But things right now are still kind of crazy. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening to my story. And until next time, love yourselves and love each other.